Like, it was really poignant and very interesting conversation. And
Wait.
thank you guys for watching.
Look at the water. You see? Very nice colors, huh?
Hey guys, welcome back to the Shade Cinema podcast. My name is Chris, and these are my good friends, my good guests. Introduce yourselves, guys.
I am Nishan.
Acknowledge me.
Acknowledge me.
What's your name, sir?
Acknowledge me.
Acknowledge me.
Acknowledge me.
No, seriously, what's your name?
I'm Luke. Hi.
Hi. Hello there.
Hello there.
So, today we're doing the sport that I called gayer than rugby. We're doing a movie. We're doing a show on The Wrestler. Again, listen, I'm a big wrestling fan. Everyone here we're all big wrestling fans. I just called it gayer than rugby because
why not?
Because why not? I mean, like, at least in rugby, they're not in their underwear. So, we're going to start with, well, the movie's called The Wrestler. Obviously, whoever hasn't seen it, go watch it. It's great. It's with Mickey Rourke. It's probably his only good performance.
Excuse me, Iron Man 2?
Yeah, I have to side with him on that one.
This is haram.
So, I think, so we're going to start off with, we're going to talk a lot about Randy and his journey and stuff like that. It's a different setup. I know we're in an undisclosed location. I also want to take the time to say rest in peace to Bray Wyatt, who unfortunately passed away last week. Was it last week?
It
Yep.
was last Thursday.
Last Thursday, yeah. So fuck.
Thank you for the memories.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just-
I remember when he started off on Raw and he beat the crap out of Kane.
Yeah.
I remember that was the first time I saw them.
My
Yeah.
first memory was these debut vignettes they were doing for him way back when NXT 2012. He came up and he beat out Aiden English, I believe.
Aiden English?
Aiden English.
The guy who
He sang the Rusev
Day
theme.
song.
Yeah.
Oh my god, my memory is blurry. COVID, bro. COVID.
Yep.
So, we're going to, well, obviously, our condolences to Wyndham Rotunda and his family. You know, like, it sucks to lose a family member like that when they're that young, and he was still somewhat in his prime. Obviously, the whole thing with the Fiend ended. The whole thing with the Fiend ended, like, a while back before that, but like, it's still, you know, it's a sad thing to lose someone like as creative as him.
Just an unparalleled body of creative work. It's something pretty much never seen before in wrestling, and we might not see again. Just a once-in-a-generation kind. One of my absolute favorites from this generation, really.
I agree. So, and also, if you're having fun so far, because I am, leave a like, subscribe to the channel,
Ballsy.
and let's get into it. So,
It's good to be a sub.
what?
It's good to be a sub.
Yes. I'll be the dom in this case. So, my first question is, talking about Randy's enjoyment of wrestling. Well, what are his favorite parts and least favorite parts about being a professional wrestler? See, Randy is an old man at this point. You know, he was in his prime and did everything, and he pretty much lived his career already. He was already on the tail end of it.
Do we know what age he is in the movie? I don't know if they mentioned it, but I guess he's around 50,
Don't,
60.
but let's just assume that he's probably in his 50s.
Okay.
Because if he's in his if in the 80s he's in his prime, right? Usually by that point in time, people who are in their prime, who have a lot of experience, who are super popular, are people who are 35 years old, maybe 30, 35. Right? Hogan, when did he become champion? When he was in his 30s, no?
He was 30, 31 when Hulkamania started, but he had a whole second wind in the 90s with Hollywood Hogan and the NWO and all that. But Hogan was really the exception in that regard, because a lot of the people from the 80s didn't have that second wind in their careers.
True,
So
but I'm just saying, like, in this case, if we're comparing, because what Mickey Rourke's character is, he's basically Hogan if he was successful, but not like so successful that he's like a Hall of Fame level kind of successful.
He's like
Like he's it's kind of like if he's Yokozuna almost.
If he's like Yokozuna, or maybe, I know it's not nice to say his name, maybe he's like an Ultimate Warrior type where he had some success, but he's really remembered as like from his time and not like this generational icon.
Yeah, like I don't know, maybe
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
But I'm trying to think because Ultimate Warrior was a big star. I would
Yeah.
say someone he was like a big star, but he wasn't like big
In his era.
in his era.
And like the minute he left the WWF, it was just kind of Ultimate Warrior.
No, but I'm saying Ultimate Warrior is a big star.
yeah,
I'm
he
saying
was.
Mickey Rourke's character in this case was probably not a big star.
I
It was not as big as like someone like the Ultimate Warrior. He probably won the title once, maybe twice, but it didn't last as long as it could have, or he didn't make it as far as as it was possible
So
to make it.
Jake the Snake.
Yeah, I think Jake the Snake, if he won the title, would
Yeah.
be kind of actually that's probably the best
Yeah, so probably Jake
comparison.
the Snake.
More like Jake the Snake. I know some people compared him to Ric Flair, and I would completely disagree
I
because
don't know.
Ric Flair is the kind of guy who would wrestle in his 50s and that kind of thing, and
mean,
he
he'd
would
wrestle-
still draw like thousands of people.
He wrestled last year. Fun fact: he's the member of Evolution to have the most recent match.
Oh shit!
He is, yeah.
Because
Wow.
Randy's injured.
Because Orton's last match was losing the titles May 2022, and Flair had his retirement match in July.
And Batista and Triple H, they had a match together in WrestleMania. I don't know which
Yeah.
one.
2019, so like Mania 35.
And ever since they haven't
Fuck
been back
me,
in the
they're
ring.
already at
Yeah, yeah.
WrestleMania 40.
Yeah, that's coming up in 8 months' time.
We'll talk about our memories of wrestling because I don't think we're probably gonna do another wrestling show unless we do Fight for My Family.
yeah, we
Fight
could do
with
that
my
one.
family.
With or-
Fighting with
With.
my family.
Fighting with my family.
Fought with my family.
Whatever, the Page movie, not the
Yeah.
not the ones on Pornhub, but the other ones.
Oof.
So, what do you guys think are his favorite and least favorite parts about being a pro wrestler? And he's probably in his 50s at this point.
Well, the obvious answer, I think, his least favorite is dealing with the pain. You know, because, of course, wrestling isn't a graceful sport. You end up banged up and bruised most of the time. And I guess at his age, with all the injuries he's come to gather throughout the years, I guess dealing with that sort of pain at the end of a match, it is sort of like a poison at the end of a match because you're happy because of the performance you gave and the reaction you got from the crowd. So that would be like his favorite part, I guess, the interacting with the crowd, having the love from the backstage crew, everyone there applauding him, I guess, for his performance, but at the same time dealing with that inner pain, the physical pain.
I would be a little more black and white in this, and I would say just the thrill of the crowd because, like, I noted a lot of the music and the sound of the film is like inherently diegetic, if you know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
No.
It's like diegetic is like it takes place in the context of the movie.
Okay.
So like when you hear I don't know whatever 80s hair metal he hears, like that's a diegetic thing.
So it's not like Hans Zimmer added music.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that would not be diegetic music.
I wonder how Hans Zimmer would do a wrestling movie.
I would like to see that actually. But I would say like because a lot of the sound is inherently diegetic, you hear what he hears. His favorite thing of course is what any wrestler would love, which is the roar of the crowd.
Mhm.
Like you can just hear you can see his world light up the minute he steps behind the curtain,
Mhm.
in front of it rather. And his least favorite of course is everything else. Like he doesn't like the menial job he works. He doesn't like how people treat him as a nobody outside of the ring. And above all, he doesn't like that he's not needed in wrestling anymore. I think a lot of the movie deals with like losing your relevancy in your chosen profession.
I think he also one of the things I think he doesn't like either is the fact that how much maintenance, and this is something they show in the movie, how much maintenance it takes to be a wrestler.
Yeah.
Like he spends there's a section like right after his first match I think where he spends a lot of time making sure his hair is blonded up, making sure that he stays in good shape, getting the drugs that he needs, getting all the props and stuff that he needs, working out, doing all that other stuff. You don't see that very often. It's like it's not a
And
it's
they
not part
do
of
it
wrestling.
all. And they do it all for 5 minutes in front of the curtain. Maybe more if you're a bigger talent.
What do you mean 5 minutes?
I'm using a hypothetical here,
Like
but
how much time they spend?
yeah, for the ring time you get, it's like 5 minutes without the entrances and all that.
Well, obviously in the movie they shorten a lot of the.
Yeah, they had to cut corners in the film. It wasn't just about wrestling. It was about everything that surrounds the wrestling. And the wrestling,
Mhm.
too, could be one of his favorite aspects. You see him having fun at the supermarket, testing out the metal pans on someone's head, on his partner's head.
Yeah.
Just the,
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah, it's
wrestling
true.
aspect, I think that makes him feel alive, despite all the negative that it draws.
Yeah, yeah.
I think probably his favorite part is, well, like you guys said, when he goes out, right? But it's the high he gets from that. It's like you said, he likes the fact he hates the fact outside the ring he's a nobody, but inside the ring he's Randy the Ram, and everyone
Yeah.
knows him, and everyone loves seeing Randy the Ram compete, or at least loved to see him compete. And every time he goes, but the thing is, he also doesn't like you said, how he lost his place.
Yeah,
in the
that,
ring.
like that. I don't know if this is a particular deliberate detail in the movie, but when you see him work a match, it's a very dated '80s style of like a lot of simple moves. Like the hardest move he's gonna do is an arm drag or something like that. And I think it's also, I would say it's sort of a detail they add in to go, he's out of place here at this stage in his career. He's like basically coming out, playing the hits. People who remember him like it, but he's not quite what he used to be. Especially not compared to
He's like an old band.
he's the old band that comes out, plays the hits, and like we got our original lineup now. And
But it still gets the arousal of the crowd. He
Yeah.
gets to move the crowd at the same time. It's not how can I say it? Yeah, he's the classic, we can say.
he is the classic. He's
And it still works. It's not like because nowadays you see a classic old school match. I mean, you're not going to get the same reaction and the same hype you would get compared to, I don't know, a hard hitting, fast paced NXT match. You know, that we used to see in 2017, for example.
Was it 2016, 2017? That was like peak NXT before the dark times.
the dark ages were 2018. You can't convince me 2019 WWE was real. Like that did not happen.
But it did.
What do you mean, bro? I love seeing Bobby Lashley fuck Lana.
What do you mean? I loved the wild card rule. I loved Corbin main eventing 4 pay-per-views in a row.
Wait.
Bruh.
Oh my god.
But it's an interesting detail. They don't.
When Corbin does a main event, a pay-per-view for the 5th time in this year.
Literally.
Give me what I want.
When Vince doesn't allow wrestling on commercial breaks for 3 weeks straight. So every match has to be no DQ, 2 out of 3 falls, or has to restart.
Give me what I want. Yeah.
There's an interesting detail I like, but it's not that I like it. I would have liked to have seen what other promotions were showing during that time in the film, because we mostly follow his journey, Randy's journey, but we don't see what's happening with other wrestlers. It's like it's coming back to the idea that he is the classic type. What are other wrestlers doing? Is it the hardcore? Well, we did see
true.
the hardcore.
What's his greatest rival, Ayatollah, doing? Is Ayatollah like content
No,
with
but
his...
they said Ayatollah was retired.
Yeah,
He
so-
came out of retirement for that match.
Is Ayatollah content with having stayed retired, or is he like Ram, just like stewing in himself, thinking what
No,
could have been?
I think Ayatollah was doing something actually productive, because he seemed to be on the phone talking to someone, right?
Mm.
So he seems like he had his life together, but then he's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll come back for this one match.
They could have fleshed out Ayatollah
But-
more, I find.
But it was
Yeah.
more about the style. I wanted to say.
The movie,
What's the wrestling style around in that era?
well, the
of
wrestling
film?
style. Well, let's look. It's 2008, so you're thinking Indies 2008, which is modern day WWE.
You could say that.
Because most of the really big names like Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, or Kevin Steen, El Generico, Adam Cole, Prince Devitt. They were all of them who were in the Indies in the early to mid 2000s are all in WWE right now, and they're all, or some of them, most of them are at least, are in WWE right now, and they're all their style has become mainstream. That fast-paced, hard-hitting style.
Yep.
It's fun that they don't mention the big corporate wrestling.
Yeah,
Not at all. In
at
the
all.
film.
Any of these movies, there was one that was a spoof. Not a spoof, but it was like a comedy. I forget what it was called, but it was basically they talked about it. They called it The Show.
Huh.
They always called it The Show.
What was it about?
It's this guy who these guys who are working in this like really small indie fed that has an incredibly long acronym like TCICTCW or something shit like that.
Ouch.
And the guys who are in the movie are like, the face is like the dickhead in the backstage, but the heel is the actual like really nice person. So it's like it's a funny little thing.
It's a film.
Yeah, it's a movie. I forget what it was called. Like if I remember it, I'll let you guys know.
Link in the description.
Link in the description.
Sort of how it is in real life, where like all the heels are really, really nice people, and all the faces are, kind of dickish.
No, you can't say that.
Acknowledge me.
You can't say that about John Cena. He's a good guy. He's a good guy.
Except for John Cena. Apparently, he's like the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna make a wish
You
right now.
want to swallow what I give you to swallow.
Fuck, bro.
Like basically,
Where did
when I
that
say
come from?
when I say the faces are dicks, I basically mean Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Just like
fair
the
point.
greatest hero in front of the camera, and just like nobody likes him behind the camera.
I remember I saw Hulk Hogan on Joe Rogan. I was like, I'm never watching a second of this. Because I know how many lies Hulk Hogan says.
What do you mean, brother? You don't want to hear about the story of how I slammed Andre the Giant in front of 300,000 screaming Hulkamaniacs at WrestleMania 3? Brother.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan. What a savage.
So like you're telling me there were like 300,000 Hulkamaniacs in an 80,000 seat stadium? Yeah, brother. It was actually 600,000. I remember.
In the Silver Dome.
In the Superdome this time.
They were watching from the parking lot.
I got more people watching Hulkamania than the Pope, brother.
Why does Randy get mad when people use his real name?
Kayfabe. It's kayfabe, and like, for anyone who doesn't know, kayfabe is everything the wrestling business does to try to convince you of its real, unscripted nature. So like, people, giving interviews in character to people outside of the business, that's keeping kayfabe. Or like in the old days, even if you were best friends, if your fellow wrestler was your rival, you would not be seen traveling together. That was
Okay.
to keep kayfabe. And I think Ram is upset when people use his real name. One, because he's become more attached to it than his real name. I mean, a lot of wrestlers will go by their ring names in real life rather than their given one.
Like Triple H.
Yeah, people will call him Hunter rather than Paul Levesque. But the other thing is he, I think in some way knows that kayfabe is dead. A lot like his career. Or, but he knows in a
Yeah.
sense that kayfabe is dead, but he wants desperately to keep it. It's another form of him clinging on to the past.
Damn, his career's dead. Why do you think, Nishan?
think it's.
It doesn't matter. Sorry. I have to
It
do
doesn't matter what you think.
I'll just go dive right now. No, I would say.
Fuck you, bitch.
Thank you.
At least do a swanton.
I'm ready. Are you going to use another one?
No.
You sure about that?
Yeah.
Are you sure about that? Just do it.
What do you mean by that?
Okay. I would say it's like seeing the behind the scenes of a magician's trick. You know, I phrased it terribly, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Bruh.
You know,
I get what you mean, though. I get what you mean. It's
watching
like,
wrestling is like seeing a magic show.
it's like you take down the curtain and it's just a guy. It's not like the Ram Robinson, you know.
It's just Paul Levesque, you know,
Yeah, it's just Paul Levesque.
whatever his real name is. But I guess it
When he was in WCW, Jean-Paul Levesque.
Excuse me, Terra Rising.
Jean-Paul.
His name was Terra Rising.
No, they played. He was playing as Jean-Paul Levesque at some point.
Yeah, well, like when he came out, he was like Jean-Paul.
Freshman.
The French.
Awful accent. Awful accent.
But yeah, it's like revealing the behind the scenes of how the magic,
I
the,
get what
the
you
magic trick is accomplished. And in a way, since he's like basking in his own past glories and he's keeping himself in, you know, Randy mode, not 24/7, hoping for the best.
Oh, he's Randy 24/7, huh?
Yeah,
Hmm.
but he's not the 24/7 champ though.
Nobody is
unfortunately.
now.
He's 7-Eleven, I-11.
7-11, I-11, 24/48. R-Truth made that whole title.
Yeah, thank you, R-Truth.
Man. But I agree with him. My childhood hero was also John Cena. Speaking of R-Truth, he was in this movie.
He
Yeah.
was actually.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was.
It's funny we brought that.
There were a bunch of other like actual wrestlers in the movie
else
too.
did you see?
The title we should have brought was the 24/7 title.
It's true, but I'm the Universal Champion, of course.
Acknowledge me.
And it's also a reminder that he's no longer, well, not that he's no longer a wrestler, it's just that he's someone else in a way. And he doesn't like that someone else.
Well, I
He's
think
someone else who is broke, who can't pay his rent, who's banged up and hurt everywhere, you know?
so. You're saying it has to do with the fact that he doesn't like that he doesn't like Robin, so he prefers to be Randy.
That's his actual name, Robin.
Yeah,
Robin is
I
Robin
forgot.
Ramensky or something like that.
So yeah, in a way, it's just like reminding you, hey, you're not this glorified superstar. You're just Robin.
you're just Robin.
You're just
Yeah, pretty
Robin,
much
the beat up middle aged guy in a dead end job outside the ring.
Yeah, cutting meat slices and whatever.
You giving nice pork sausages to middle-aged.
Hello, I would like some 1 pound of basturma, please.
Do I know you?
Do I know you?
Takes his finger, jams it in the.
Yeah. I mean, that was his whole breakdown scene.
But why do you think that happened? Well, hold on. Let me answer. I
Yeah,
think the
go
reason why. I think the reason why is because of how crappy Robin's life is, and how great Randy's life is in comparison.
Yep.
He prefers to be Randy because if him being Randy would mean that he can carry that delusional high forever kind of thing.
Yeah, that leads into my thought of like when I watched the movie, I said, "Is this like a fictional documentary? Is it a fictionalized documentary, or is this supposed to be a critique of the wrestling industry, how it treated its talent? And are we supposed to be sympathetic for Ram, or are we like supposed to criticize him?"
But the way it was filmed, just technically wise,
Yeah.
it felt like a documentary. The
Yeah.
unsteady camera. It's not too cinematic. It's really rugged and almost grainy as a film.
Yeah,
And it felt
looks,
like
it
a
looks
documentary.
almost. It looks like it's almost an indie movie.
It's like Dark Side of the Ring, but low budget.
It's like Dark Side of the Ring is more of like a documentary style.
It's
but
an
like,
actual documentary, but,
but
it's
like I think it's more. It's not a critique. I wouldn't say it's a critique because it talks about how like a lot of people come up to him and they say like, "Oh, I really like this stuff and whatever." And wrestling was the. It's like wrestling is both the good guy and the bad guy in the movie.
Yeah, I think of it as the main villain. Really,
the antagonist.
it gave Ram everything he could ever want and more, like fame, fortune, and like a crowd of admirers. But it also took everything from him. Because like he can't go into a normal life.
It's like he sold. It's like the. It's gonna come off so wrong, but I'm gonna say it anyways. But it's like a. Say my name.
Goddamn right.
Goddamn right. Say my name.
So, I think. Randy, to Randy, like it's almost as if wrestling is like the devil. It's like he sold his soul to it.
Yeah, 100%.
And the cost being
That his regular life is complete shit.
That he's totally broken down in middle age.
But that's partially on him.
Yeah, that's why I said, like, are we supposed to be sympathetic, or are we supposed to criticize him? Are we supposed to go like
That we can get into later.
Yeah.
I guess we can ask that later. So, what are the similarities between Randy and Cassidy? Cassidy being the stripper that's
Aunt May.
played by Aunt May.
Was it? I didn't even recognize her.
How?
I just didn't.
How? It's Aunt May,
It's
bro.
Aunt May, not the one from Tobey Maguire.
Oh, wait. Fuck. No, thank you.
I'm gonna come.
No. Go ahead, Luke.
What are the similarities and what are the differences?
The first most obvious similarity, I think, is that they're both these middle-aged professionals in a profession that emphasizes their youth and their body.
Oh,
if we
interesting.
Yeah. Like that was the first thing I noticed between them. It's like they're both like aging out of a profession that's built for young people with great bodies.
They have an expiry date.
Essentially, yeah. But the biggest difference between them, I would say, is that Cassidy wants out of that lifestyle. She's just there to like secure an income for the time being so she can raise her son and all that.
That's an actual good point. Like, he's basking in his glory while she's using it as a
And
tool.
yeah, and Ram is like desperately trying to get back into that life, and she's desperately trying to escape it.
Mm.
So I think like they're, I don't know how to say this. They're one and the same only in the aspect of like where they are, but they totally diverge when you see their motivations.
I think
Very
it's
well
also that Cassidy is outside the ring, she's called Pam, and she's only Pam.
And she insists on using her real name.
Yeah.
Where Ram wants nothing to do with it.
Ram always is either Ram or Randy.
It's also like it points to the fact that they're both playing a persona when they're on stage, literally. And
You mean she's not into me? I'm never gonna spend my money there again. Like,
it's like going to a casino. It's just money wasted, bruv.
but like she was looking in my eyes and everything. You're telling me she's not into me?
Yeah.
Baby girl.
So yeah, I guess like you said, their intentions diverge, and it shows exactly like he hates being called his real name while she openly states Pam is my
It's
name.
like, do I call you Cassidy or do I call you Pam? It's like Pam.
She's using that identity as a means to an end to make money, and in a way for Randy, it's the complete opposite.
And her idea is that like, oh well, the club and the real world don't mix. Right? She likes to keep those two parts of her life completely separate, while Randy tries more and more to bleed it into each other.
Yeah.
They're both playing a part as well, like you said, I think, right? They're playing a part in creating these personas that other people would gravitate towards. In the case of Cassidy, it's to become this sort of sex icon, or at least sex object.
Yeah.
For the whims of horny men, and for Ram, it's for the whims of horny women
And
and men.
Yeah.
But that just reminds me of like, it's fucking raw. No, what that reminds me of is like early on when Ram and Cassidy have their first interaction in the movie, she compares because he's about to go wrestle the death match. Of course, after that he has. I don't want to spoil too much of the movie, but after
No, you
that,
could spoil it. Like if you're watching this show, if you're watching this and you haven't seen the movie,
that's all. Right before he goes to wrestle the death match, and like Cassidy says something about she doesn't like that kind of violent thing, but she compares his performance in it to Passion of the Christ. Like, I don't mean the movie, I mean like the actual biblical Passion.
She said that literally.
Yeah,
I forgot that.
Like she compares him. She just says like the Passion or something like that.
well,
as
no,
far
she
as I
talks
remember.
about the movie. She's like, oh, you haven't seen the Passion of the Christ? But
I-
anyways, like
I watched this a while ago, but she compares it to like that, and essentially that's what it is. He's beating himself senseless. He's destroying his body for others' entertainment.
And that's why she can't stand there
Like
while
she's there
he's going
to
out.
she's there to support him, but she can't bear to see him destroy himself like that.
that's why she leaves at the end, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of the ending,
And she comes back for his comeback match.
that was the ending.
That was
Yeah,
the ending.
The ending is like
Though
when he-
that's the only one she sees live.
I
Yeah.
remember telling you the ending was weird, but now that I think of it again, I fucking love the ending. It's so open-ended, and
Yeah.
it's like that good type
It's like-
of open-ended.
it's this really good ambiguous thing of like, did he finish the match? Did he?
Did he
come-
just die out of a heart attack by jumping from the
Yeah.
top rope, you know?
To Randy, the Ram Robinson, what is pro wrestling?
It's a weird question. Interesting, but
For
weird.
another time.
you can give the very short version where like in the context of the movie it's everything, but the long version is a little more complicated.
Do you think he died at the end?
The way they filmed it was leaning towards that conclusion. Without giving us the actual answer, he could have survived very well. I mean, he went through a heart attack, but he was this close to dying. So maybe he survived. There's a 10% chance, maybe, or maybe more. What do you think?
I want to be optimistic and say he finished the match and never wrestled again, and then like it caught up to him later on, but he doesn't die in the ring.
So what's pro wrestling for Randy? For Randy, I think pro wrestling is the before, the pendant, and the after. The pendant means in
the during?
during. So we could say that, or planning the match with whoever you're fighting, that's part of wrestling.
Yep.
I guess whoever wants to shoot an action sequence or whatever, like
No, but I mean, like, what is wrestling as a concept?
oh,
Like to him, in his
It's,
mind, what is wrestling to him? Like, I'm not saying, oh, what is wrestling? Oh, well, wrestling is a contest between two people. It's not like that. I mean, like, what is it to him?
What does it
mean?
represent?
What does it mean to him?
so we're coming back to the fact that it means it's a way to make a living if you don't spend it like an idiot, like he did. It's a way to, I guess, make a name for yourself, make money, have fame, and everything that goes with it. From Randy's POV, I think that's what he sees. He's living in the glory. He just seeks out the glory. And when he thinks that his body is too fucked up to continue, what does he do? He says, okay, I'm retiring. Because he thinks that the performance he's going to give is no longer as glorious that to the point that you would expect it.
Glorious.
Though he retires mostly on doctor's orders, because he wants nothing more than to keep going.
It's true. Yeah, you're right on
He
that.
retires on doctor's orders.
But then he says fuck it ever since he breaks up. He has that
Once everything deteriorates with his relationship with Cassidy, his daughter, which we haven't mentioned yet, and even his relationship at his job, he just goes, fuck it, wrestling is the only thing I have left. It's almost like he did it deliberately.
in a way to, as the exclamation point.
His daughter's relationship is destroyed because he goes into that fugue state and he parties hard like he would have 20-some years ago.
Which he probably did, yeah.
And he misses the Saturday dinner with his daughter, and she never wants to see him again. And then after that, like, he has the breakdown at his job, and he just says, yeah, I'll take the booking against Ayatollah.
And imagine that he dies during that match. Imagine what it does
He's lost
to his
every
name.
he lost every last thing. Well, wrestling is odd in that it's not, like, to quote Bray Wyatt here in one of his famous tweets, wrestling is not a love story.
Yeah,
Where,
it's
like,
true.
It would have gone either way with him. Like, he could be seen as just a tragic figure, another one lost to this absolutely hungry business that devours you and throws you out when it doesn't need you anymore. Or he'd be seen as sort of like a wrestling martyr, as like someone who really, truly gave it all for it.
But at the same time, it would make people talk about him. You know, it's all about the attention.
No
you
matter what,
get
he would
to-
never be boring.
Yeah, let's just say he had a pretty rock and roll early debut career. He had it during his prime. He was the guy. I don't know in which promotion, but he was the guy. They still talk about him 20 years later.
Yeah.
And him dying in the ring would be like this epic ending, you know, even though it's
Yeah.
sad.
No,
The guy-
I no, I understand what you mean. Yeah, I think he definitely he wanted his career to end out like on a bang, and it kind of ended on a whimper, kind of thing. Like he wanted to control his destiny, and I think we should, like, it's time we mentioned the relationship with his daughter. I think the reason, like, he got back into it, and I think he got back into it with his daughter because he realized that, like, oh shit, my career is over, but like I need some kind of meaning.
Yeah.
Right. So where he found his meaning, the meaning for him was by getting closer with his daughter and becoming like an actual father figure for her. And then he slipped back into some old bad habits, and then that caused him to miss out on the dinner.
Yeah.
And that's where Luke's critique idea comes into play.
Yeah, like, are we supposed to be sympathetic to him for, falling into that? Or are we supposed to go, like, give it up, old man, just hang up your boots, like, your time is up, you can't make this about yourself anymore?
But Cassidy brings up the point are you trying to reconnect with your daughter because you want someone, or it's his daughter who puts it in his face, you want someone to take care of you now that you're old? You know,
That's
is it a
also-
selfish
That's also
thing?
a thing. Is Ram self-centered in his attempt to
I
reconnect?
don't think he is, because he just wants to make something right. I don't think Ram is a bad person per se, but he's definitely a bad parent. But he's not. I don't think he's a bad person at all.
Because the role model thing, he's way too late for that. I mean,
Of course.
she's a grown woman, for God's
She's
for
an
Christ's
adult
sake.
woman, and like that's where I think the Jake
She
the
does
Snake.
not acknowledge her daddy.
She certainly does not.
Do it.
Acknowledge me!
And I think that's where the Jake the Snake parallels
Of course.
become even more apparent, because Jake the Snake, of course, had several children, most of which he did not take care of, and so he might have completely changed the industry, like, regarding how promos are done, how storylines are conducted, and all that. But he was just a non-existent parent. But I suppose that's the price you have to pay to be a major revolutionary star in that kind of business.
Or we
Well-
could take the Dynamite Kid, for example, as well.
Yeah, we watched his.
Yeah, him too.
We watched his documentary. How he took care of his family, but then his life fell apart
Because of him.
because of him, because of his problems. But also, I think when it comes to Ram, I think the reason why he was, let's say, doing all the substances and stuff, and just something that even Jake talked about, it's like when you're in the ring, you have this like high.
Yeah.
You're on this high, like, that it's unprecedented, because you're out there for maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes at night, and it's everything that your work has been put into. Right? Imagine you work all week and you work hard
Yep.
for it to pay off in 15 minutes. It's probably the biggest dopamine hit you can ever take in your life. That's why, let's say, even Jake Roberts, apparently he fought a wrestler named Ernie Ladd, and during the match, they did a wrong move and his bone fucking stuck out of his elbow. And then he didn't even feel it because he was so hot up on adrenaline.
It's the adrenaline, yeah.
That he just didn't feel it.
It's the
So when
magic
they-
of the roar of the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when so with this high comes a big downside, which is that when you're not in the ring, nothing feels as good anymore.
It's like those who pop a pill. They get the high and then the down is oof. It hits hard.
Exactly. So for example, that's why a lot of these wrestlers, they do cocaine and shit.
Like he did with
Like
the woman in the bar.
That chick there, yeah.
Yeah, with that woman at the bar there. He also did that because Cassidy rejected his advances. Don't forget.
It's true. Maybe he was trying to drown his sorrows.
Yeah, because Cassidy is his only confidant, his only real friend, because everyone else is essentially a coworker. And now that he's left the ring, he can't contact them anymore. He has to sit on the other side of the barricade.
And he did that, right? He went to that one match and he saw
Yeah.
other people wrestle, and he's like, oh fuck, I want to do that.
Yep.
Imagine that's the case with, like, let's say Corey Graves, who had to retire when he was young because he had too many concussions.
Yeah.
But
Wait.
at this day and age, it's different. They found him a job.
Yeah.
They were able to use him and his in-ring IQ for some other purpose.
It wasn't like that for everyone, though, especially not in the 80s where, like, the instant you stopped drawing nostalgia crowds, it was kind of over for you.
Ciao bye. Yeah.
And it was, an exceptional few. Like, sometimes they're remembered more for their out-of-ring career than for their in-ring. Like, maybe because he's a little too far behind us, Gorilla Monsoon is one of those people.
Yeah.
He was a top contender for the championship back in the 60s, which, feels like 2 centuries ago in wrestling time. But he's best remembered among younger generations for his time as a commentator.
But also, it's interesting you say that because in the movie, when they were at the bar, they were like, oh, 90s sucks because Kurt Cobain, whatever, right?
I think that's also a cool little Easter egg they hid in the movie because, if he's a big star in the 80s,
It's probably not a big star in the 90s.
his career starts dropping in the 90s.
How many big stars do you know that were big stars in the 80s and 90s?
I mentioned quite a bit earlier on Hogan.
Hogan was one. Warrior, maybe.
I think
Not after
Ultimate-
Halloween Havoc.
Not after Halloween Havoc. Macho Man, to a degree.
Yeah, to a degree.
You
Bret
could say Bret Hart, but Bret Hart's
was a
career
tag team guy in the 80s.
Yeah, and then he became big name in the 90s. So,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about a big name in both. It's very rare. There's like a handful, like not even. You can't even fill up one. You probably can't. You
can
probably fit it on one hand, maybe two.
Yeah.
But Randy was not like, he wasn't Hulk Hogan level. He wasn't Randy Savage level. He was probably Jake the Snake level. And the substance abuse and probably just damage within the ring caused him to deteriorate over time in style. And that's when, like you said, once they can't draw nostalgia crowds anymore, then that's when they're kind of fucked. And that's kind of what you see happening here. He probably could draw maybe 30,000 people beforehand, like in pack out an arena or whatever, just by himself. But then over time, it became 20,000, 15,000, 10,000, 5,000. Now it's like maybe a few hundred people, right? So he's way past his prime.
Well, look at where he wrestles during those. It was, real life promotions that they used, like Ring of Honor, Combat Zone Wrestling, and a couple of others. And those are
the only ones that are noteworthy.
Yeah, those are the only noteworthy ones. It's the only ones I could recognize. Maybe the others have since shut down.
They wouldn't get copyrighted by those.
Yeah, WWE.
But
what's funny is that WWE was not mentioned in the movie, or was not even shown.
At all.
But then Mickey Rourke comes and punches
Chris Jericho.
in the
Well, they
face.
were supposed to have a match at Mania 25, and
Didn't do it.
Rourke backed out, and in return, Jericho got 3 legends. And we got the awesome return of Ricky Steamboat.
Well, he was the only one who could really wrestle at that time.
Yeah, like Piper, Snuka were barely mobile, and then Steamboat comes out
Who's
with
Snuka?
those. What were we talking about? We got from Mickey Rourke
Oh yeah, because
challenging Jericho to.
no, because we're talking about how over time the crowds dwindle down, right?
Yes, that's true.
And that's what happened with him. That's why nobody wants to do anything with him. And that's why that show with Ayatollah was very important.
Yeah.
Because he just wanted
Well,
because there was a scout there for the show.
They mentioned it in the
Yeah, they mentioned it in the movie. It's like, oh, there's going to be a scout.
But
So obviously, you know, it's
wouldn't the scout be more interested in the younger talent rather than the
Chris.
aging veterans?
oh my god, bro. But as I was saying, it was he needed to do that show if he wanted to get back to the top, because this is my ticket back to the top. But then the reason why he did the show afterwards changed.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? It was to say, it was to prove that he's still a wrestler and that he could still wrestle.
And
True.
if you notice, a lot of the world looks very washed out. Like, I'm looking more in technical aspects here, but the world outside the ring looks very washed out and sort of dull. And the minute he steps in the ring, it's just brightly colored. And if you notice, there's almost this ring of light, like a light at the end of the tunnel when Ram finally goes for the final Ram Jam at the very end of the movie.
Mhm.
the
It's like-
spot was right behind
Yeah,
him.
because the spotlight is right behind him. It's like this ring of light around him. So that's why I think it's another little hint of the ambiguous nature of the ending.
So in a way, you could say that wrestling for him is actual life.
Oh yeah, there was a question to answer.
But what was that?
What is pro wrestling to Randy? What does it mean?
It's the thing that gave him a life, a career, that gave him his fame,
purpose?
a purpose, but it's also the thing that essentially was his premature undoing.
It cost him the most. It's the thing that gave him the most and that cost him the most.
It's like with combat sports nowadays. Everyone who, and even we could flash back to the Roman times with gladiator rings. It's just one of those things that, with great fame and with great risk, you're paying the price, either with your body or outside of the ring with substance abuse or
Or with your life.
with your life. In back in those days,
And it's fundamentally the same thing. You destroy yourself for others' entertainment.
Keep in mind, right? And this goes for not just wrestlers, but this goes for anyone who's like a big time star. The star that burns the brightest burns half as long.
Yep.
it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. So he burned bright when in the 80s. Now he's dimming down, and then if he died, I would prefer that he dies in the ring than if he dies just like,
Even though it's a
snorting
sad
cocaine to death.
ending, even though it's a sad ending that he would die in the ring, it's better than living out the rest of his life.
in a
You know-
crap. Like, because look at it this way, right? He didn't have his job at the deli anymore. He didn't have
The relationship
Yeah.
with his daughter.
the relationship with his daughter.
The only thing he has, what potentially has, is Cassidy, because we don't know if she stays with him after the match. Potentially.
But like, if he dies in the ring, right? Like, at least he died loving what he was doing. Like, I don't mean like an Owen Hart style death where where it was like a stupid accident that shouldn't have happened. I'm talking about like someone died in the ring doing their finishing move, and then that's how the match ends.
Yeah.
Like it's
It's a great
probably the
Performing his finishing move. The last move.
the last move.
Last move is last match. It's a very poetic way to go out in that sense.
Yeah.
Therefore, hence ending the real life in real life being wrestling. His real life is
his
wrestling.
real life and his wrestling life have finally come together in that sense.
But it's interesting.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. He could have spent a lot of time, training other wrestlers to become better. But
They don't
And I
go
think
into that.
what?
They don't go into that side really. The next generation.
They could have done that. I think that the movie would have benefited if it was about 30 minutes longer.
But they kind of hint it when you see the convention of old ass wrestlers signing merch and giving
Yeah, but that's-
t-shirts.
he's the only one that still draws a crowd. The others are, asleep at their booze, and he's busy signing his
It's
greatest
not,
matches.
Yeah, that it's not just that. Everyone else is like torn apart. One of them's in a wheelchair. The other one has
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
a broken leg or whatever.
I'm surprised Virgil wasn't there.
Who?
Virgil.
Who?
Did he beat?
Acknowledge me!
Didn't he beat Ted DiBiase at WrestleMania 7 or something?
Yeah!
Not my domain.
By the way, Virgil's undefeated at WrestleMania.
Yeah!
Virgil's undefeated.
Yeah, Virgil is actually
Careful,
Rob-
Brock.
Careful, Brock. Nah, we found the guy to dethrone Roman Reigns.
What is pro wrestling to Randy? To Randy, pro wrestling is an escape.
Yeah.
It's him entering the Matrix.
The Matrix.
The Matrix is on you right now.
The only way to escape it is to buy a Bugatti.
Bugatti.
Are you afraid of bubbles?
Breathe air.
This is haram.
But I think no, he was actually kind of like it's like he entered the Matrix. It's like as soon as he entered that ring, as soon as he opened that curtain, he's in a completely different world.
Yeah, I agree.
And I
with
think I think reality really hits him when he's in that CCW match.
Yeah, in the death match. What's hilarious to me is they beat each other with chairs and light tubes and thumbtacks and anything you can think of, and then they're just great match, bro, backstage. It's just like an emphasis of the trust wrestlers put into each other.
Well, I think it's also, I think it's in my opinion, it's probably one of the dumbest types of matches you can do.
It's got an audience, though. I'm not one.
It
to
is an audience.
Seek out.
There is an audience, of course. We are not denying that. But doing a hardcore match like that, especially at his age, you could tell how little bookings he was getting if he was considering CZW.
And if you remember, like right after the doctor tells him to stop wrestling, he gets a paycheck not too long after, and it's like paltry for what he did. It's like maybe $120 or something for the match.
So, like, exactly. So keep in mind, he's barely making anything to get by. It's
and
like
he's
wrestling.
doing something that costs him too much.
It's kind of
physically.
It's kind of like this podcast, isn't it? His life between.
Click anything.
Good night, everybody. Shut this all down.
Get that dickweed out of my sight.
Where'd you get that one?
Black Ops 2. So, no, but it's kind of like this podcast, right? Like
You
like,
mentioned
Don't
Black Ops 2.
roast Shade Cinema. I'm
I'm
not. Kick you
I'm
in the
not.
face.
I'm not roasting it at all. I'm saying it's like I work at a basic regular ass job that's completely unnoteworthy all week. So then I can come over on the weekends and do this.
Yep.
That I enjoy.
Which
You know
one
what I
makes you feel alive?
This one makes me feel much more alive. I go there to die. I come here to be reborn again. It's like I'm a born again person.
Would you rather die at work or would you rather die on the podcast?
I'd rather die here. At least I get views. Man dies on podcast.
Say my name.
Gone wrong. Cops were
Say
called.
my name.
Gone wrong. Gone transsexual.
Gone sexual. But it's funny you mentioned Black Ops 2 because there's this cute little scene where, because Ram lives in a trailer park and he's like barely scraping by on rent and all that, and everything he has inside is just 80s memorabilia. So like he invites one of the local kids to play Nintendo, and when he means Nintendo, he means an NES with. What he means is he has an NES with one of the old wrestling games that has him on it.
Daddy.
And it's interesting. It's like if you look at the graphics, right, it looks exactly like that old WWF game.
Or
Yeah.
that New Japan game they made.
That's Fire Pro Wrestling is different.
Yeah.
No,
But-
that's different. I'm talking about like that. The game was called, I think, WWF WrestleMania, back in the day on the NES.
Yeah.
And it was. I mean, it was a wrestling game back then. So that's probably the nicest way I could put it.
It was in that era where like games were transitioning out of Atari 2600, where the only actions were move and action, like
To
move.
actual like more story based, but this was not a story based. It was like a fighting game on a 3D plane, whatever. But
that-
anyways,
that
so-
adds to the
so the
wrestling
kid goes-
aspect.
right,
The
yeah.
kid like plays a couple rounds, and then he goes, oh sorry, I'm getting bored of this. There's a new game called Call of Duty out. So like it's just again how out of time Ram is compared to the rest of the world.
And out of all the games he could play on that console, he chooses to play a wrestling game. It still adds to the fact that he's
Because he's in it.
obsessed.
Because he's in it.
Yeah,
well,
that
all
too.
wrestlers are obsessed with. Well, most of the wrestlers who get really far are obsessed with it. You don't think like Bray Wyatt, like God rest his soul, was obsessed with wrestling, and you can tell.
But it's still like showing, even in that time, an era where video games were, okay, not starting, but still weren't
Well,
what they are
going
today.
back, yeah.
He
Not-
chooses to play a wrestling game. Of course, it had him in it, but it still adds to the fact that he's completely obsessed with the sport. And when he's not in the ring, at least he can emulate it in some sort of way. In his trailer park
Again,
home.
he's emulating
The sensation of the crowd. Of course, I don't remember if there
He-
was little crowd noises, but that must, for an old man like him, that must trigger something in
and
him.
perhaps the reason he has an NES is that's the most recent console to have him in it, because he stopped
Yeah.
being relevant after that period.
Oh shit,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Because the Super Nintendo came out in the 90s when he lost
Super
relevancy.
Nintendo comes out in the 90s, and like
Problem solved.
he
See, I
wasn't
don't
a fan
think-
of blast processing.
So I don't.
Aaron Beligas Luzai.
Was that from The Sims?
No, that's Joe.
That's Joe Rogan.
Oh,
That was Joe Rogan.
Sussy baka.
So
that just reminds me of when Io, Sky, and Asuka were arguing in Japanese on Raw.
what this?
Yeah, Sussy Baka.
Sussy baka.
Because like Asuka just
Baka
starts
beats
going.
stupid.
Yeah, because Asuka just starts going Baka 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 Baka.
I remember I saw that. I started laughing. So like I said, pro wrestling was like an escape for Randy the Ram. And Randy the Ram was someone who, because his only good part of his life was only pro wrestling. That's the only thing he focused on. It's like these people who get addicted to, let's say, video games. It's like the only good part about their lives is when they go home and they play video games. And so that's why they get obsessed with it. That's why a lot of these people don't like the only thing they do is play, let's say, World of Warcraft. And it's kind of similar to that in my opinion.
Here's a weird thing: is Ram at that stage and at that age, that stage of his career, is he into pro wrestling, like getting into the ring and having matches and all that, or is he into the thrill of a crowd? Is it just a means to an end, or is he also chasing the high of like being in the ring? And
I think it's both.
Yeah, both.
He enjoys it, but obviously it hurts them still. Like you saw him, like in his first match, he was like he was holding his back and it was hurting him. He said his back got blown out.
You're too fast, Chris.
oh, his back got blown out. Okay.
Sin City was a
Yeah.
It's a long soundbite.
Yeah.
So, I think he was someone who just was so enthralled within that pro wrestling sphere that it's just something that he just enjoyed doing so much, right? But obviously he didn't enjoy the CZW stuff, and he still enjoyed like the thrill of being out there. And it's, but if you're asking which one most, I think him being in front of the crowd, definitely.
And there's one way to answer that question directly. You look at, let's compare him to a UFC fighter. What happens to most UFC guys who were actually good in their prime and past their prime, and let's say they can't fight anymore? What happens is most of the time they end up becoming trainers. They become coaches, and they lead their pupils or the next generation. But in his case, he had everything to become a coach, a trainer, a mentor.
Yeah.
But what does he decide to do? He decides, instead of putting someone else on the spotlight, he puts himself in the spotlight again and
I
again.
think he was probably jealous of those younger wrestlers. That's why when he was there and he was watching the people wrestle, he was like, "Oh yeah, I love that." Like, okay, so maybe I don't think it's that he enjoys wrestling itself. He just enjoys the thrill of it.
Yeah, that's
maybe.
your answer, because
Because
if
if
he
he-
enjoys wrestling, he would contribute to it with new talent, with the new generation.
Like, do you think, let's say Triple H, right? You can tell Triple H loves pro wrestling because the amount of training he does to other. Obviously, he doesn't train directly, but he at least guides these people, right? Like the new generation of wrestlers.
He was instrumental in starting NXT, which is more wrestlers than he could ever train.
Do you feel sympathetic for Randy the Ram? Given all we've said, right? Like the wrestling and everything, and how great, like how passionate people can be about it. Was Randy the Ram? Is it a sympathetic story, or is it something you can criticize, like he's being a dickhead, or is it because like I feel bad for him? Like, do you feel bad for Randy, or do you think like he put that upon himself?
It's very gray, because despite his best efforts, it's a story of a guy who's stuck in old patterns. Like, you can clearly see when he's trying to reconnect with his daughter, it's with good intentions, but then again, his demons rise up and take control of him in a way. So, in a way, let's strip his demons away from him. Someone who truly wants to reconnect with his daughter and knows that this restaurant date is super important, they will take the necessary steps to avoid fucking it up. You know? In this case,
Yeah.
it's getting hammered and sleeping in bed and, waking up too late for it.
Yeah.
So in a way, I kind of feel bad for him, because he's trying. He's trying to make good out of his misery or his situation. But then
But
again,
he fucks up.
he fucks up and ends up you know, in old patterns. And not only that, he decides to go wrestling
So
again.
do you think do you think it's sympathetic, or do you think it's is he at fault, or is it like would you be like he's being a dickhead? If you had to choose, even
No,
if it's
he's not a
51 to
dickhead.
49%, would you say you're more sympathetic towards him, or
I
you're
feel
more,
bad for him.
okay, so
I
you're
will
more
say
sympathetic.
I will say I feel bad for him because yeah, obviously he's done bad choices in the past and in the present, and it's just, you know, like we said in the Dead Poet Society, people are stuck in patterns sometimes, and sometimes it's too late, especially when they're 50 to change it. You
We're
know,
creatures of habit.
Well, it's like you
Yeah.
can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's why that's why they try to indoctrinate children, and they don't try to indoctrinate older people.
The end credits song is actually a Bruce Springsteen original, and one of the lyrics is about an old dog not being able to learn new tricks.
Oh shit! Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know. I didn't know that.
Wow.
If you ever,
that's a nice
if you ever play
parallel.
like if you ever play the end credits song, which I think he wrote for the movie.
Was this the end credit song?
Yes.
But
What do you think, Luke?
I would say I'm, like, if I can put percentages on this, like 60-40 sympathetic to him, because I feel like there's this little scene where he gives Cassidy's son one of his action figures, and like it's not only an indication that he's still remembered among younger people that weren't around to see his best work, but it's also this like stark reminder that he's only remembered through that line of work. So it's almost like he has no choice but to cling on to it, because that's all people will remember from him.
Can't you say that's selfish in a way?
He's selfish in the sense that he can't give up the limelight even long after his star has faded, even long after all his best has come out. So, like, in that sense, I'm kind of going, like, hang it up, old man. But when you see that scene, it's sort of poignant in a way, because, like, that's the only thing he's known for. So it's only natural that he would pursue it.
And also, in a way, you could say it. He's trying to be a fatherly figure to some other child, which he was not for his own kid. You know,
Pretty-
giving the toy.
yeah,
That's a pretty astute observation there. So when you see scenes like that, you kind of go like, what am I supposed to feel about this man?
It's very gray again.
Yeah.
he's a great character. I think
He's-
it's more. I think it's like I would say 55-45 that he's being a dickhead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, Chris.
Now,
has
if
to
you're
do that.
asking me what do I mean by that,
Of course he's
What do you mean by that?
what do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
I'm gonna say it's because he has the choice, right? I think people are obviously people are creatures of habit, correct? Like we agree with that, but at the same time, this is someone who, you know, is given a second lease on life, especially when it comes to his daughter, and he has a choice. He now has to make this important decision to step away from everything, but he decides to stay in the limelight and still even stay as, you know, try to maintain his life as a pro wrestler. But the problem is that that part of his life is over, and he's going and he's fucking around with random women and doing blow in the fucking bathroom,
As one does.
as one does, and then likely proceeding back to that woman's house to do it, but dressed up as
A fireman.
a fireman, which is funny. But he has this second lease on life, and he fucks it up because he can't get out of his own fucking habits. And that's when, you know, some people just, I get it, they don't have control, but it's like you have to learn to control those things. And at the same time, he put himself into those positions. He could have saved the money and been like Ayatollah, building a successful business, or at least build a wrestling school. But he tried to continue riding on that second way, on that wave.
He's trying to stay in the limelight long after he could have left it.
Exactly. So instead of trying to leave with a bang and leave with like a big retirement match like Shawn Michaels, who I don't know if he started wrestling school after that or
Wait, Shawn Michaels had another match after Mania 26?
no, he didn't. He did not. That is not
Off the
canon.
books. Off
That
the
is not
books.
canon.
Not
That is
canon.
Star Wars Legends. Okay.
Yep.
So he, let's say Shawn Michaels, right? For the longest time, he allegedly. He left with a bang, right? He fought Undertaker, streak versus career, and he lost. Like after that, Shawn obviously didn't need the money, but if he did, he could have started a wrestling school, or in this case, he trained the next generation wrestlers, and he has another job. But let's say he couldn't get a job at the performance center, or there was no performance center. Well, now he can start his own wrestling school and do whatever, and he can make his money like that. Similar to how Randy the how Randy the Ram could have done that. But instead, what Randy the Ram did, and he tried to get those little pennies, right? A little 100 here, 100 there.
He threw away dollars to chase after cents.
Exactly. So because trying to get those few cents was more valuable to him.
Can
So
you
he
say
was-
it's an identity crisis too?
Especially that.
Because he's been rammed for so long. Like, who is Robin?
He's been rammed.
Yeah, he's been he's been rammed for an
The
especially
wrestling
long
business,
time.
the wrestling business does ram you here and there throughout the years.
Been
He's kind of forgotten who he is.
yeah. At the risk of another innuendo, he's been Randy Robinson for such a long time. He forgot who Robin was.
And therefore he can't revert back to his old ways when he doesn't know what's the old ways.
Well,
the
have you-
original way in a way.
Do you know the full reason why Shawn Michaels retired in 2010?
I think he realized that was the best. He said that after this is I think what he said. I think it was Inside the Ropes. He wrestled his match against Undertaker, and he was like, I think that might have been my best one. I wouldn't have minded if that was my last one. So then he stayed on for another year, and then basically did the other match again with Undertaker. That he decided, like, I want this to be like the best match ever, so I can leave at my absolute best.
I've heard another story where at the start of 2009, one of his fellow wrestlers came up and like his son was backstage, and his son I think was 9 years old at that time, and that wrestler told Michaels he's halfway gone, because the idea is that American children leave the house at 18. So Shawn Michaels went, I haven't been with my kid since he was like very, very young. I'm going to miss a lot of his formative years. So he decided 2009 would be his last calendar year, and then he would retire at Mania 26.
Oh, interesting.
So
But
I don't know which story is correct.
But then
of
again,
course.
for if you look at Shawn Michaels and you look at Randy the Ram, Randy was not really there for his family, and he ditched his family, right? And he took drugs and stuff to feel at ease. Like listen, I feel bad for, let's say, Jake Roberts for all the drugs and all the stuff he did, but ultimately he did them. Ultimately, he had the choice to put those substances into his body, but he didn't feel right about putting those things into his body.
You got to remember, Jake Roberts also had this absolutely horrible upbringing as the son of Grizzly Smith.
Yes, that too. Of course, there's like a million things to extrapolate on that.
You can't separate those things,
We don't necessarily know the childhood of Randy the Ram.
Yeah,
it's never touched upon in the movie, but at the same time, let's look at it like let's say Jake Roberts did not have those problems growing up, right? Hypothetically, let's say he was born into a loving family, whatever, and he basically, that means that Jake Roberts would have done all those drugs and stuff after wrestling because he was still high on that supply, right? And it's the same thing with Randy the Ram. He tried to stay relevant, and he tried to maintain that high for as long as possible, instead of trying to get back into reality, get out of that Matrix mindset, and then try to pursue.
Are you saying his problems would be solved if he just got red pilled?
His problems would have been solved if he realized that he was because what is the red pill in the Matrix? It's the truth, correct?
Yeah.
It's like learning the truth, and the truth was he was beaten and out of shape and way too old and past his prime, correct? If he instead is like, okay, I'm out of shape, I'm past my prime, what can I do now? Well, I love wrestling. Maybe I can open a school because I know a lot because I was a big star 20, 30 years ago. A school with him would have been extremely valuable. Extremely valuable.
You already have the name.
Yeah,
You
like
got the
everyone
expertise.
knows him. He walks into a locker room, everyone starts applauding.
Yeah.
But then again, leaving the wrestling world and going back to civilian life, it's like a military coming back from, I don't know, being deployed.
Being a
are
soldier.
what are you coming back to? In his case, he's coming back to a non-existent family.
Well, keep in
to a
mind
daughter who hates him, to
a mundane job.
a mundane job, and
I think the reason why
despicable lifestyle.
I think the reason why he didn't like his job was because what is he comparing that to? What is he comparing his job that he currently has to? A job where he's a wrestler and he can his whole career is beating people up, smashing people with chairs, putting people through tables and shit. And now what he's doing, he's slicing meat up at a deli.
And before that, he was stocking the warehouse, no?
Yep.
And what is in front of a crowd, not at all in front of any people. Polar
then-
opposites.
Yeah, but then he kind of started to enjoy it.
Yeah, because he was in front of people. And
He
was
starts
hyping
enjoying the deli because he's in front of people again.
yeah.
until there's that one guy who recognizes
Yeah.
him.
Because
And then that one guy who recognizes him, and that's like after his whole thing with his daughter and everything, and he was having a bad day, and that was just, and then he realized like, oh, you're Randy the Ram. I remember you in the '80s, and that was like 20 years ago. I was like, shit,
You don't remember now. You remember the old me.
the old Randy. So, I guess now the question would be is like, what do you think after all of this is the lesson of the movie?
don't be old ever.
Learn
To-
when to say stop.
Yeah.
Or when not to give up, but when to, steer the ship into a new direction. Because at a certain point, you're going to hit the iceberg.
Does he have that much time on his clock, though?
Not at that point. Not really at that point. But if he retired maybe 10 years beforehand, like in the 90s, he was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
In the mid 90s, he's
'Cause-
like, okay, yeah, I can't really draw anymore. I'm kind of I'm past my prime.
And
I'd
set
rather
your
not give you
priorities
guys-
too.
I'd rather not give you guys like a lesser version of me. So let me train these guys. Maybe he could have been there as a manager. I don't know how good of a promo he would have been. Or maybe he could have been there as a booker. I don't know how good of a booker he would have been. But the point is, he had opportunities to do other things, but he didn't.
But clearly, this guy's main issue is that he didn't set his priorities straight throughout his entire life. Not throughout the end of his life, which we meet him. Like early on in his life, he fucked up.
But was
Clear
that
and
just
simple.
But was that just the price he had to pay to be a major name in the entertainment business? Because
We didn't need to waste his money and do blow.
wrestling's
Again, it's like I said, it's a part of that high.
wrestling's a notoriously what's it called? It's a notorious animal in that wrestlers, I think, are 8 times more likely to die before 45 than ordinary people. And so longevity and wrestling don't mix. People don't generally think in the long term.
Except if you're Terry Funk.
But I'm
I mean,
curious to see this new
am I wrong, though?
generation.
Also, Rip Terry Funk, wrestling just lost its grandpa, and
Isn't that Vince?
there was this old
That was the
documentary
great Gamper.
made in '99 called Beyond the Mat, and it followed a rising star, a star that was past it, and a man who couldn't let the business go. And the rising star is Mick Foley, and they show the famous match against The Rock at the '99 Rumble, where he takes 11 unprotected chair shots because his hands are handcuffed and all that. And I just noticed there's a lot of parallels to that because he's at a time the man destroying himself to rebuild a star. He's a man who was big once upon a time in Beyond the Mat. That's Jake the Snake, who we've paralleled more than once. And he's also a non-existent parent and all that. And then there's Terry Funk, who is probably most famous to us for his countless retirement matches. Probably had 100. Every other match would be the Terry Funk retirement special. He would be back 3 weeks later. So there might be some real inspiration in Beyond the Mat into characterizing Ram. So he might be a mix of all three, if you ask me.
Maybe not of all three.
But minus the Mick Foley,
Probably. Well, yeah, they definitely took, I think, inspiration from that.
Mhm.
From a bunch of the wrestlers who were, past their prime.
Yeah, people like Funk, people like Jake the Snake and all that.
Even at that point, Foley, if you can argue.
Foley was peak in '99. That's when he won the world title. And
No, but I'm
everything.
saying by 2008, he was
Mhm.
way past his prime. I mean, 99. How long later was Foley past his prime? 2002.
Foley retired Foley retired the very next year, with
Oh shit, that's true.
Yeah,
but he wrestled a couple matches, no?
he was part time. He did the Mania 16 main event. He did the
He made-
Backlash match against Orton.
He did Mania 20.
Mania 20 at Rock and Sock Connection reunion. He did Mania 22 against Edge. He had a couple matches here and there.
Oh, that Edge match is legendary.
Nothing beats the 2012 Royal Rumble, Santito's Cobra, and Mick Foley's Mr. Sacco. Iconic.
Do the Cobra.
Iconic.
That's why wrestling is real, bro.
It is.
It's
And so
real to me, damn it!
And you know what? When I was a kid and Santino was on screen, I had convinced myself wrestling was real at that time. And I was like, oh yeah, it's just it's a hit to the nerve or something. He's just putting on the Cobra because
I think you watched that one match with JTG, and you saw
Oh,
the
the
way JTG. No, the one where JTG gets hit and he starts having a seizure.
Oh yeah, no. The other one I was thinking of is like Kali and Jinder Mahal have the snake charmer flutes on either side of the ring, and they
Yeah.
keep drawing Santino's Cobra here and there.
That's fucking stupid.
That's real. That was legit.
It's fucking
Like
stupid.
Santino's hand became a sentient snake, and it could not resist the sounds of Jinder and Kali.
What did you do? That sound like a guitar. Fucking.
I play microphone spring bass.
This. So when do I get to smack you in the face?
So what's the story? What's the message?
The moral of the story.
What can we learn from it?
I would say is like
Stop! Stop.
just
it.
stop. Just
Get
don't.
some help.
Just don't ever be old. If you notice you're getting old, just stop it.
Don't do
Just-
drugs.
Just fucking kill yourself.
Oh my fucking god! The Canadian healthcare experience,
No,
I mean,
you
the
have to.
Viking experience.
iconic.
The Iconics.
They were great.
Oh
for
my
what
god.
For what they were great. Don't even.
What?
I think the moral of a story is like, I don't know if it's necessarily planned for the long term. I don't think it's any sort of moralizing to you. But the lesson you take is like aging is inevitable, and you should essentially like
Get ready for that.
yeah you should be ready to address that eventually, because aging is an inevitable thing. It's a terrifying thing to think about, really, but it comes for us all, and like Father Time is undefeated.
That's true.
Mother
like, no
Nature
matter
and
what-
Father Time.
What was it?
And-
Mother Nature gives you your gifts, and Father Time takes them away.
And the other thing is just like everything you do catches up to you in the end. His, absentee parentism, his drug use, his, working a very demanding profession long past his prime. It all catches up to him in the end.
It's true. I think it has to do with. It's more about knowing when you're done. Knowing when to stop. Because it's, the sunken cost fallacy. It's when you put in so much time into something that you're like,
Well-
oh, I can't stop now. I have to continue.
So much of like
It's sort of like that. Sorry. It's sort of like that. It's like, imagine he put in 10, 20 years into it, and what is he just going to stop now? If he stops now, that means all that time was for nothing in his eyes.
it's
So
like
it's
that.
learning to curb that. Sorry. It's learning to curb that. So even no matter how much money or how much time you put into something, if it's not worth your time, then don't do it. And for him, it's not worth his time. How much money was he realistically making every week wrestling?
We
A
saw
few
the
hundred?
death match was $120. The CZW
He could make-
match.
He could probably make that much out at a job that's significantly safer. But then again, he loses the spice of life, correct? But then that's when he fucked up, and he tried to. That's because that was the only thing he focused on.
It's the only
He
thing
didn't build anything else around it.
It's the only thing he knew. He's been Randy Robinson, the Ram, his entire adult life.
And then when he stopped becoming the Ram, what is he saying? I'm all alone. I don't have anyone. I'm like my daughter hates me. All that shit. He starts.
Obviously, he wasn't a tag team competitor.
No, instead he had one-on-one matches with the Undertaker. The sunken cost fallacy, I think, is something that a lot of people get stuck into. So they look at how much time they put into something, and then they see like, oh well, I can't go back now. I already put this much time, this much money, and this much resources into it. But sometimes you gotta take that step back and be like, yeah, this is probably not the best way. Or sorry,
Yeah.
this is not the best way to proceed forward. So I think that's the moral of the story, and it's learning when to stop.
Yeah.
Knowing when to stop, and knowing to take a step back and be like, is this the best position that I can be in? Because sometimes, man, you're
Despite what the heart says.
exactly, despite what the heart says, it's not the most ideal thing to continue doing what you were doing forever. Thank you guys for watching. It was really fun. It was great talking with all my friends. It was really poignant and very interesting conversation. And thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe. And I think you might want revenge. Yeah, chill, bro. Chill.
Come on, you know you're gonna have to go, lah. You know you're gonna have to go.
This city was 2000, and that match featured the game Triple H. Oh, sweet chin music! told you, King. I told you. I told you. Look at Cena's face. Oh my God.
Now Aleister Black toying with Adam Cole. You got a black mask! And what you got is Aleister Black winning!
McAfee looking to put him away. Superplex! God-given strength. Wow! Pure power. Oh, and the leg gave out. And a spear. Cena's Achilles gave out. A spear by Reigns. The legal man. The shield is right. Both slipped a bit. Seth Rollins takes advantage with a ripcord knee.
Lead it up here. Carlito's doing. I can see one flaw in Carlito's.
Oh my God! Good God Almighty! What the hell? Shut up like this! No! Oh my God! Yeah! The Stunner! Oh my God! Ultimate Stunner! And the meanwhile, knocked off to death the title belt! And they're waiting! Rock bottom! The rock bottom! The WWE champion! That's rock bottom! The rattlesnake!
Looking to go all the way up!
Oh no! Lesnar with Cena! Lesnar's got Cena!
Left Cena unopened. That's huge right there.
Styles is going somewhere. Look at this.
Yeah, he's
He
wanting
knows.
to use that
He
real
knows.
estate to his advantage.
He knows he wasn't going to hit the cover. Here comes that. Oh, he nailed it. Ducked underneath the right hand. Look at this.